Press play to listen to this article by Jack Blanchard. Sent tips here. Subscribe for free. View in your browser. Good Monday morning, and a happy May Day bank holiday. London weather. Cool. It doesn't get much better than this. Glorious summer sunshine all day, with barely a cloud in the sky and record-breaking highs of 27 C. Enjoy. And if you're working, the good news is the sun doesn't set until 8:33 p.m. And at least it'll be a little cooler toward the end of the day. Driving the day, prepare for battle. As Britain bakes in the bank holiday sunshine, Theresa May is preparing for a fiery showdown with her party when MPs return to Westminster this week. Following Business Secretary Greg Clark's Downing Street sanctioned turn on the Marr show yesterday, in which he backed the PM's plan for a customs partnership with Europe, May's allies tell the FT's George Parker she will not be backing down. The Prime Minister has told her Brexiteer colleagues that unless they accept her compromise plan, Parliament could inflict an even less palatable option on them, a full customs union with the EU, Parker reports in today's FT Splash. "If we don't make this decision, Parliament could do it for us," said one ally to the Prime Minister. Another said that Mrs. May's team would be working flat out to persuade cabinet doubters of the merits of the hybrid plan. "It will work," said one. Not impressed, Brexiteer Tories were deeply irritated by Clark's performance, having believed, or at least hoped, the partnership plan was killed off at last week's pivotal Brexit war cabinet meeting. Telegraph carries angry comments from unnamed cabinet sources, plus this from former Brexit Minister David Jones: "There's no doubt Greg Clark has been licensed to say what he has said by now. 10. They ought to understand that the customs partnership is dead and finished and they should give up. It's Project Fear 2.0, it's not what we expect now." For what it's worth, Downing Street sources have denied Clark was specifically sent out to bat for the PM's customs partnership. Dates for your diary. The full cabinet is due to meet tomorrow, but the important meetings are likely to be the next two Brexit war cabinet summits, one planned for this Thursday, a second for next week, through which May hopes to win approval for a tweaked version of her plan. What Tory Brexiteers are thinking. This Twitter thread on the customs union by Open Europe's Henry Newman, who is now a Tory councillor in Camden, was endorsed by Michael Gove last night, not once but twice, here and here. Newman says it is disingenuous to suggest the Brexit vote was anything other than a vote to leave the customs union, and warns May she would be misguided to resurrect the corpse of the customs partnership. Gove described the thread as useful. Note the 10th of May not agree. What Tory Remainers are thinking. This via Nicholas Soames' Twitter feed last night. The grammar's not the best, but you get the sentiment. Many of us want this holding to ransom of the PM and the pragmatic centre of the party in public opinion by ERG and its supporters, including at Jacob Rees, Mug to end, and for the best Brexit for UK to be negotiated. It's techie, but well worth your time. And speaking of Ireland, an Irish dairy company trying to diversify its cheese output from cheddar, sold primarily to Britain, to Norwegian Jarlsberg, sold to Europe and North America, has hit severe problems, Politico's Simon Marks reports. Its plight is indicative of an industry desperately worried by the prospects of new trade barriers with the UK. Meanwhile in Brussels, the European Commission has toughened its stance on post-Brexit trade rules amid concern in Brussels over the prospect of a Jeremy Corbyn government, The Times' Bruno Waterfield reports. He says EU officials are pressing for a tough, level playing field mechanism in future trade dealings with Britain amid concerns a Corbyn-led government would subsidise manufacturing and nationalise European-owned public services. Mondieu, Francophiles hoping that French would become the EU's dominant language following Britain's departure are set to be severely disappointed. English is more prevalent than ever before, Politico's Maya de la Bombe reports. Iran countdown 5 days to go. Boris Johnson is in Washington, D.C. today as Britain make a final plea to the Trump administration not to scupper the nuclear deal with Iran. Foreign Secretary flew in for 2 days of talks with senior administration officials including Vice President Mike Pence, with a decision due by the end of this week. Writing in today's New York Times, what better way to Trump's heart? Boris quotes Churchill as he urges the U.S. president to think again. Do not forget how this agreement has helped to avoid a possible catastrophe, Boris writes. Had the leaders of the Islamic Republic decided to go for a nuclear arsenal in 2012, they would have needed only a few months to produce enough weapons-grade uranium for their first bomb. At this delicate juncture, it would be a mistake to walk away. Trump call. Johnson's visit follows Theresa May's phone call with President Trump Saturday night, in which the White House said Trump underscored his commitment to ensure that Iran never acquires a nuclear weapon. The UK's efforts are part of a wider Western push to keep the Iran deal alive, with French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Angela Merkel both visiting Washington in recent weeks. But no one is holding out much hope. Trump is still widely expected to kill the deal off this coming weekend. Working holiday, an extraordinary stat via CNN's Manu Raju, WH not confirming what Trump did today, as he spent day 111 of his 471-day presidency at one of his golf courses. Today in Stirling, VA, today in Westminster Parliament, in recess until Tuesday afternoon. Javid vs. Adonis. Labour peer Andrew Adonis apologized last night after retweeting a cartoon about Home Secretary Sajid Javid that some Twitter users decried as racist. Javid was one of several angry Tories to call him out. The Metro has a write-up. In case you missed it, far right on the march while you were sunning yourself Sunday afternoon, teacher and campaigner Mike Stockbury joined hundreds of far-right activists on Tamia Robinson's Day for Freedom march down Whitehall. And he reckons it's time you took us seriously. His Twitter thread is essential reading. Hair running, it's not online, but in his weekly column today the Mirror's associate editor Kevin McGuire, one of the UK's best-connected left-wing columnists, predicts Jeremy Corbyn will be gone before 2022. One to watch. Momentum's town hall, hot on the heels of their stunning success in Thursday's local elections, where they managed to lose more seats than any other Labour group in London. Labour Party activists in Haringey will meet tonight to discuss who should be the borough's new council leader. Former Chief Claire Cober stood down before the election after months of pressure from local Momentum activists over her support for a massive public-private housing redevelopment. Tonight's hustings event in Wood Green will be advisory only, ahead of tomorrow's private meeting of elected councillors where the new leader will actually be chosen. Footnote: Cober was on Friday appointed Director of Housing at Pinnacle Group, a firm that, naturally, specialises in public-private housing redevelopments. Scoop: speaking of revolving doors, a former defence minister has been slammed by Parliament's revolving door watchdog after taking up a string of defence-related jobs without first informing the Commons authorities. Veteran Tory MP Julian Brazier served as Defence Minister under David Cameron from July 2014 until July 2016, and was knighted by Theresa May at the end of that year. But after losing his safe Canterbury seat to Labour in perhaps the biggest shock result of the 2017 general election, newly published records show he strolled straight into two private sector jobs linked to the defence and security industries. Nice work if you can get it. Brazier is now working as a non-executive director at Samson, a startup that focuses on digital, virtual and augmented reality solutions to a number of training and maintenance areas, mainly in defense, and as chairman of Pathway, a company that provides counter-terrorist and related services for organizations responsible for crowded events. But he has been hauled over the coals after failing to inform Parliament's revolving door watchdog, the Advisory Committee on Business Appointments, ICOBA, before starting his job at Pathway. ICOBA has written a series of angry letters, read them here, raising concern at his conduct, and banning him from dealing with government until the autumn due to the significant risk he would be perceived to be breaching lobbying rules. The committee notes this is not the first retrospective application it has received from ICOBA chairwoman Angela Browning writes icily in the final letter to Brazier. It is regrettable the committee again finds itself in this position. In other defense news, Tory MP Johnny Mercer hits out at the portrayal of Army veterans as mad, bad or dangerous in a revealing interview with The Telegraph's Anna Mikhailova. "You're either a hero, or you're broken," he says. "In reality, 95% of us are in the middle." Mercer, tipped by some as a future cabinet minister, reveals he in fact suffered from a serious mental illness in his 20s, before he joined the army, but that his experiences in the battlefield drove it out of me. He recalls, "Some of my behavior was extraordinarily weird." Media Round Today program, Jake Sullivan, former National Security Advisor to ex-U.S. Vice President Joe Biden, 7:09 a.m. Gavin St. Pierre, Chief Minister of Guernsey, and Laura Finlay discuss assisted dying, 8:10 a.m. All Out Politics, Sky News, off air until Tuesday. Daily Politics, BBC Two, off air until Tuesday. Reviewing the papers tonight, Labour peer Joan Bakewell and The Times senior political correspondent Lucy Fisher, Sky News, 10:30 p.m. and 11:30 p.m, TLE's editor, Stig Abel and filmmaker Jenny Kleeman. Today's front pages, click on the publication's name to see its front page. Daily Express, bloodbath on our streets, 3 dead and gun and knife chaos. Daily Mail, the river of plastic that shames Britain. Daily Mirror, pray for my mate Fergie, TV Eamon's tribute to pal. Financial Times, major risk Tory rebels' wrath by pressing ahead with customs plan. HuffPost, bloodshed in London, 4 shootings in another weekend of violence. The Daily Telegraph, grandparents' right to see their grandchildren may become law. The Guardian, new deportation scandal hits Home Office. The Independent, Windrush scandal reveals deeper immigration failings, says poll. The Sun, Flintoff bust-up, cricket ace exclusive. The Times, fear of Corbyn prompts tough EU line on Brexit. On the continent, read what the rest of Europe's papers are saying in Politico's EU Press Review blog here, updated daily at around 8 a.m. Beyond the M25 from Brussels. Real competition. Politico's expanding Brussels operation is launching a new Competition Pro subscription service later this month, headed up by our senior policy editor Christian Oliver, who before joining Politico worked the competition beat at the Financial Times. Pulling in the scoops for Christian will be Simon Van Dorp, an experienced competition journalist who joins from trade publication PAR, and Thibault Larger, who has worked as a consultant at Oxera and previously at Ofcom here in the UK. Welcome both. From DC. Trump makes midterms about saving his presidency. The president's team is hoping that Republican voters will turn out for midterm elections in November if they believe it's the only way to save Trump, report Politico's Christopher Catalogo and Darren Samuelson. Bank holiday reading PTI, a profile of Donald Trump's controversial lawyer and personal fixer, Michael Cohen, via the New York Times. The blurb, his uncle was a mob doctor. His partners often ended up on the wrong side of the law. His business deals raised questions. And then he became personal lawyer to the President of the United States. Bank holiday reading PT2, inside the distant marriage of Donald and Melania Trump, via the Washington Post. The Trumps are often apart even during their free time, according to several people who know the couple's schedules, the Post reports. At Mar-a-Lago on holidays and weekends, the president golfs or dines with politicians, business executives and media personalities on the patio, while Melania is often nowhere to be seen. According to several current and former aides, the president and first lady often do not eat together in the White House either. They spend very little to no time together, said one longtime friend of the president. London calling travel, several lines closed today due to the public holiday. Get the latest here and here. Not actually London but this year's Brighton photo biennial, opening in September, will focus on in Europe, as Britain gears up for Brexit. The press release states, we will use photography to examine our current state of flux, reflecting on our relationship with Europe and the geographies of the United Kingdom. More details here. Get well soon, to the BBC's legendary Andrew Marr, who revealed yesterday he has cancer of the kidney. He will be off work for a couple of weeks or so, while the malignant tumor is removed. Happy birthday to Weavervale MP Mike Amesbury, crossbench peer and former Justice of the Supreme Court Lawrence Collins. And the legendary Essie of Moncrief's Cafeteria, now, reportedly, relocated to Millbank. Celebrating over the weekend, The Spectator's assistant editor Isabel Hartman, former Defense Secretary John Hutton, Motherwell and Wishaw MP Marianne Fellows, Lib Dem Brexit spokesman Tom Brake, Best for Britain spinner Christine Longworth, Politico's Ryan Heath, and former PM Tony Blair, who turned 65. Playbook couldn't happen without my editor Zoya Sheftilovich. Subscribe to the Politico newsletter family. Brussels Playbook, London Playbook, Sunday Crunch, Brussels Influence, DC Playbook, all our Politico pro policy morning news.